Get ready for an epic Transformers review. In this video, we take a deep dive into Transformers Age of the Primes Leader Class Megatronus, the first Leader Class figure in this brand new toy line. This towering Megatronus, the Fallen figure, boasts an impressive robot mode and a menacing Cybertronian tank mode, making it a must-have for Transformers collectors and fans of the lore. We showcase Megatronus' transformation, compare his size and scale with other iconic characters, and analyze where he fits in the Transformers legacy. Whether you're a G1 enthusiast, a fan of modern Transformers toy lines, or looking for the perfect display piece, this review has you covered. We also include stunning action shots and display ideas to help you decide if this Megatronus deserves a place in your Transformers collection. Let's go. We're finally here, and what a way to kick off this series. I'm not entirely sure I can even adequately describe how great this figure is in words, but I sure as hell am going to try. Megatronus to me represents a whole new age for the Transformers line in size, detail, ingenuity, design, story, all of it. If the rest of the line is this good, then we're in for an amazing series. I'll tell you right now, if you're on the fence about this figure, get him. You won't be disappointed. And before we head into the inferno that is this Megatronus review, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us here at Heroic Nonsense to continue to grow this incredible community. Here he is, the Fallen, the once most powerful Prime who turned to fire and darkness. You can almost feel the rage emanating from this toy in his black and gray deco, his furnace-inspired design, and his major arsenal of weapons. And let's not forget his size. He's a big one, and I'm not understating that. To be honest, my first impression of the shots I saw of him was that he was underwhelming and looked like a repaint of War for Cybertron Megatron with some minor upgrades. But man, was I completely off. This is an entire new mold, new design with a new transformation. His colors are cool, his look is cool, and the character is cool. What more can I say? Well, a lot more apparently, so let's take a deeper dive into this Megatronus figure, a way better version in my opinion than the Bayverse one. Even though this is an entirely new line, I love that this line and figure is a continuation and evolution of the Transformers series that perfectly takes what came before and upgrades it for this new era. For me, one of the most striking elements other than the design is the color. I don't think we get enough cool Decepticons in black and gunmetal like this, so it's great that they went all in with this figure with a top-notch paint job. The yellow inferno breaking through just makes this figure all the sweeter. You can see here all the bells and whistles that this guy comes with, from his shoulder-mounted missile launcher and tech, to his opening hands, to his fusion cannon, which can further be extended even in his bot mode to create an even more powerful weapon and look. As we move in closer, you really start noticing all the details of this figure and the truly comic book inspired design throughout. I feel that a lot of attention and love was put into this figure as a flagship leader class character for this line, culminating in such an awesome head sculpt which ultimately gave rise and inspiration to Megatron and the Decepticons and the Decepticon symbol. His waist swivels, so no worries there, and it's completed by a very cool samurai tech inspired belt which complements Megatronus' design nicely. He's also got these very chunky beast-styled feet, which is cool, but is my least favorite design element, though I guess somewhat appropriate, and I believe further based off of his Dreamwave comic design. I'm assuming this is his specific logo on his arm cannon, which is nice since I believe each Prime will ultimately get their own. Even the side of this figure looks incredible, with absolutely no weird kibble getting in the way of his menacing design. No empty spaces either on any part of this figure. That's right, zero. Now this is where it gets fun because Megatronus comes with a ton of features and accessories, which ultimately add up to countless different configurations that you can place him in. Starting with his back, which can house all three of his major weapons, including his sword, axe, and cannon, in a number of different ways. I had a ton of fun finding different ways to display these, as you'll see here and throughout this episode. And to be honest, I could have continued, but I figured I'd leave some ideas for you guys to discover. Now to you. Which of these did you like the most, and do you think this is a cool feature of the toy? From my perspective, this is 100% on point for play and display. This one for me was truly inspired. Not an advertised option at all, and one that completely came from my mind, but wow does this look awesome. All it takes is reconfiguring one of his tabs on his laser, which is on a joint, and placing it in one of the shoulder slots at this 45-degree angle, and voila! Great to take on some of the upcoming aerial bot releases. And just so you don't have to, I translated the Cybertronian glyphs that are written underneath his cannon on the back of his pack so we could know what it's called. It's a Requiem blaster, and like the rest of his accessories, can be placed on his arm in different ways given the extra tabs on the weapon that can port into a lot of different areas to create these really unique looks. As you saw earlier, this cylindrical part was placed on his shoulder to give him that Megatron laser look, but it can still be used on his blaster to form the muzzle, which creates an even more imposing weapon, which can further be placed in some cool different configurations as well. And so, I ask you again, which is your favorite? I think one's preference ultimately ends up being the pose you put him in. And as we wrap up his blaster options, we transition to his handheld combat weapons, which also provide for a myriad of possibilities. Especially since there are two of them, each with their own unique look and feel. These weapons complement his samurai-esque design really well, and as you'll see in the display section, can be used to create some really fun storylines and shots. Add in the flames that he comes with, and you've got the final beast mode for this guy. This feature has also taken inspiration from his comic book look and is actually a nice little bit of bonus material that you can have some fun with. I didn't think I'd like it when I first saw it in pictures, but in the right pose and setting, looks kinda great. And if you thought that was it, one more surprise. The two weapons actually become a pole axe with a blade on one side and an axe type head on the other. Another great option for plain display with or without the flames. I like this way of securing his weapons on his back the best since it can be angled in such a way to give it a draped over wandering samurai look. As for posability, he's got it. Added to the swivel action at the hips, he can also easily be placed in this position as one of many and balances perfectly. The funny thing is, he's still huge even when kneeling, and while we're on the topic of size, he is extremely well built and is quite heavy. They didn't skimp on this guy, that's for sure. He also balances fairly well on one leg so that you can create some more dynamic shots, though you will likely need to use the main balancing leg closest to his arm mounted Requiem blaster so that its weight doesn't tip him over. So overall, I'm totally into this figure and character, and it's actually made me consider getting all of the Primes, even the ones I wasn't entirely certain we'd be getting. I can only imagine how impressive these Primes will look together. While I'm still waiting for a realistic, real-life inspired, Earth-based, higher-class tank mode for our Transformers collection, I have to say that this has become my favorite tank design from our collection to date. Just like the figure, it's big, really big. Even better, it's mostly in black, and man does that add to the look of this thing. It's imposing, menacing, sleek, and scary, all rolled into one. This thing is just cool, and perfectly encapsulates what a vehicle mode of Megatronus should be. Nothing really seems out of place or a secondary afterthought. It's a really well designed vehicle mode in its own right. Did I say it was big? In case it hasn't hit home yet, it's quite the Cybertronian tank to behold. I don't know if it's the design itself, the color, the fun transformation, all of it. Whatever it is, it just works for me and transforms beautifully. Every angle, every shot is impressive, this probably being my favorite, and seriously, I cannot get over the awesome paint job. I absolutely want more of this color scheme. I even surprised myself when I was looking over these shots as I put this review together, of how great this toy looks both in person and even on screen. It's definitely got that War for Cybertron Megatron feel, but taken up 100 notches and perfected. I even don't mind the feet here, as I could see it as tank grates to dig into the ground when firing some high intensity shells. I think the yellow adds a lot to the overall look, even if they're only on small highlights here and there, giving this guy a burning furnace kind of look in both modes, and I really like the spot for his prime symbol on the top of his cannon. I don't usually add the weapons onto the vehicle mode unless it's meant to be there, like the lasers on the Seekers, or is hidden. I'm okay with it here, and we've seen this type of placement before, and the kids like it a lot, so it's all good. The back has a small additional slot for the back to keep it in place, in addition to the main attaching port in the middle, which is nice to have so that it doesn't randomly rotate. All laid out, the accessories Megatronus comes with are quite impressive, almost a toy in itself. And if you want to have some more fun with the flames, you can add it on in this way to give Megatronus that blast furnace look as he charges into battle, firing his Requiem blaster, especially since the flames are designed in a way to give the appearance of being blown in a certain direction. And of course, no toy of this size would be complete without having the option to fit some of the blast effects from Transformers toys of earlier lines. I'll note that this figure doesn't come with any of its own though. Alright, let's transform this guy. So we're going to start by taking off his Requiem blaster and the muzzle of the cannon. And we're going to take off his weapons from his back. We'll just keep those aside for now. And let's start with his fists. So just going to push that up and rotate back 180 degrees. We're going to do the same here. Open up the compartment, put the fist in, close it. And we're going to swivel the hips 180 degrees. And we're going to open up his chest. It just unhinges like this. And then there's another part that unhinges forward. You just got to push it from behind and then pull it out. We can push these little side mounted weapons now, but we could do it a little later also. We're going to pull his head and chest forward and then lift up the front of his tank treads. Like so. You got to move the head forward just so you have the space to do this. And then we're going to grab these back portions, these covers for the tank treads, and spin them around 180 degrees. So you pull it out, spin it around, and then click in place. And then we'll just open these up for now. You can turn the head around. And you lift up these side pieces to his chest and then rotate the whole thing 180 degrees. And you push it forward. This is going to form the front part of the tank. And now you see the slots over here, the tabs. They're going to fit into each other. You just got to find the right spot. And there you go. They click right into place. You can see how it all fits together. And now you're going to make sure those two pieces are pointing upwards. There's a little slot area for it. And now let's move to the legs. We're going to open these side pieces and then open up the bottom tank treads. Push the foot in, close it back up. And you're going to leave these side flaps open for now. And you'll see why in a moment. Now we're going to unhinge the leg. This is the most difficult part. You got to pull it up 90 degrees like this. And then you're going to rotate the bottom leg 180 degrees. You see right here, that leg is going to click into the front tread. Do the same here. And then just push it up. Rotate the leg 180 degrees. And then you open up this flap, which is going to click into those two side ones that I mentioned earlier. So you see the tab here and the corresponding one there. Just move everything out of the way, give you some space, and just click it right in. Let me just get it in. It's kind of hard to do it when you're looking at it from this angle as I record. And there we go. It should get in any second. There we go. And we're going to do the same here. Just push it back up and just make sure it clicks into place. Line everything up nice and straight. And then this tab will fit into the slot, no problem. There we go. And you can see how the tank is taking form. Now you're going to bring down this section with the tabs that fit in all the way back here. So pull it down, it extends a bit, move the arms out of the way, and you'll see it fits in perfectly. Really flush with the rest of the tank. And now we're just going to do the cannon portion. So lift up the arms, and you can move that missile launcher forward and this little laser thing. And now let's put it down for a second. We're going to grab the laser and we're going to open it up. And we're going to grab the part we took off from the back earlier and just place it here so you have a nice full tank cannon. And you're going to use these slots right here and corresponding on the arms to right there, push it in. We're going to do the same on this side. Just push the arms together and it will lock in place. Of course, don't drop it like I did. And then let's just put it right back in. And there we go. So that's the tank. Looks amazing. Honestly, it looks amazing. All right. You can see it from all the different angles. And it has wheels, so it moves pretty nicely. Now, if you want, you can take the axe and sword and click them together. And then you could take these smaller flames and push them in on the side, right in the middle here. I'll do the same on the other side. like that. And then on either side you can slot it in if you want to keep the weapon on him. I likely won't when we display him, but something you can do and fun to play with, I guess. And right here is where the back is going to tab in so that it keeps the whole thing in place. And if we want to add the rest of the flames, you can put it right here. And they fit on either this way, or if the front arms are rotated 180 degrees, you can fit it in as well. And there you go, the Burning Inferno Megatronus. Really great figure, great toy. And this rotates, as a tank should. While I am going to do some basic comparisons here so you can get an idea of size, at this time we still haven't received our other Age of the Primes pre-orders, so I can't give you a full comparison just yet, but don't worry, that will come. In the meantime, here's how he stacks up against some of the more important figures for scale comparison purposes, and you can really see how big this guy is. Being even slightly taller than the Galvatron mode, in this case showcasing Straxus, and almost reaching Grimlock proportions. I'll have even more comparisons as part of the display and build portion of the review, so sit tight. Funny enough, the figure that looks the best up against Megatronus, scale-wise and display-wise, is Nova Prime from the Legacy Evolution line. Something about the juxtaposition of the white against black, angelic cybernetic wings against burning chaos works. It was totally by chance that I took this guy out to compare him against Megatronus, but really happy I did. I can imagine some very cool storylines you can make up in your head using both these figures and characters. Of course, we can't leave out Megatron in tank mode, of which we only have his Cybertronian mode, since I didn't think his Earthrise mode was particularly good. However, in this case, imagining Megatron on Cybertron in this very nice silvery finish next to Megatronus is quite appropriate, and makes me appreciate the Megatron Cybertronian tank mode that much more. I appreciate toys and lines that work together, and although these two are separated by quite a few years, they do in fact line up well. Also, as far as Cybertronian tank columns go, these two in this design, one being in black, the other in silver, works really well. Again, because we're missing all the other Age of the Primes figures at the moment, I thought this episode I'd focus on the Decepticon tanks, and so that means Bludgeon was a must. Although Bludgeon and Tarn are quite a bit more in line in bot mode, the tank mode is dwarfed by Megatronus' size and appearance, but I do like having different sizes of tanks, especially in Cybertronian modes, since it makes sense to have different tanks for different purposes. And Megatron back in, and we start building up a nice looking team of tanks coming over the horizon to take out some Autobots and Primes. In case you're still wondering about size, here he is next to Galvatron, who I think lines up quite nicely. A few others I threw in, not for any particular purpose, story, or display wise, other than to simply showcase Megatronus' size and scale. Overall, as far as tanks go in the Transformers line, Megatronus, in my opinion, is the best. This is how a tank, at a minimum, should look next to other vehicles, and working in the Cybertron mode just makes it all the better, scale-wise, since you have a bit more room for imagination. I always look forward to this part of the review because I get to be creative, but more importantly, play with our toys. Before we get into some team builds, a few extra shots of Megatronus that are meant for displays, this being my favorite with him unsheathing his axe and sword while burning with hate. I find this looks really good, especially with that fire effect. This is of course a classic, but coming from Megatronus just adds to the intensity. He's pointing a bit down, which means he's taken on a smaller bot for which he has no qualms about, or is finishing one off as he bleeds Energon on the ground. Before we get into a bunch more unique display and team build ideas, I want to go back to Bludgeon for a moment because, as a master of Metallico, and of course his very samurai-inspired design which lines up with certain elements of Megatronus, he just makes sense. He was also recruited by Megatronus in the War Within the Dark Ages storyline, and so if you're looking for a lore-accurate display idea, this is one way to go. Given that you can play fast and loose with any storyline involving Megatronus, since 1, he's an interdimensional being, and 2, there are many different versions of lore out there incorporating Megatronus, including in the movies, you can really do what you want with him display-wise across any Transformers line or era. In this case, I was inspired by all of it, and so some of these shots can be either considered as sparring or Megatronus taking out Bludgeon on a whim. So we got these non-transforming Transformers 1 figures not too long ago for the boys, and thought it'd be fun to incorporate them into some display ideas. In this storyline, Megatronus is still kicking about and takes Megatron under his wing, with a young Orion Pax looking on in apprehension. You can also use this Megatron figure as a display foreshadowing the rise of Megatron. Back to the transforming lines, here using Minor Megatron from the recent Legacy Evolution 2-pack that came with Rat-Bat, which I think just looks fantastic. I love the face sculpt of this Megatron and the colors they used with those added construction worker decals. In this reality, I imagine Megatronus is around at the time of the Senate and has taken on this young miner who has made a name for himself in the gladiator pits and is disillusioned with Cybertronian society to directly mold him into his avatar of destruction. These two figures really complement each other nicely, both from their look as well as their history. This is more of a fun evolution type shot where we see Megatronus in the background and young minor Megatron right before he becomes the future leader of the Decepticons in the name of Megatronus. Not to be repetitive, but since this is the first Age of the Primes pre-order to arrive, I don't have much to go on in terms of Prime displays, but I can use some of our related pre-war figures to create some interesting displays. While these two figures of Orion Pax and Alphatron are based off of the cartoon, I think they actually fit in quite nicely with Megatronus and Minor Megatron to create an image where Megatronus is destroying Vector Sigma as a helpless Alphatrion looks on with Orion Pax ultimately left to rust on the ground. You can also notice a Minor Megatron here in some of the shots, almost feeling remorseful, which we'll get even more of in a bit. But before that, Megatronus chasing down Orion Pax and Alphatrion. I didn't get a chance to really showcase these two next to each other in tank mode yet, so let's continue our tank build from before with Minor Megatron, who again I think looks fantastic next to Megatronus. More of a comparison shot here, but still a good idea for a possible display with Megatronus in the middle of the two versions of Megatron, who he ultimately inspires to create the Decepticons. Wondering why I didn't add in Blitzwing before in the comparison section? After all, he is one of, if not the most iconic tank Decepticons out there. Well, I decided to use Overcharge here instead since we just also got him in, and I think he looks incredible next to Megatronus in these colors. While this tank mode bugged me when we got Blitzwing, with that nose cone sticking out, I'm funny enough okay with it here since I am not held to any preconceptions of what I think Overcharge should look like. Something about these two together just works and I couldn't wait to get them together. What do you guys think of this combo? A win or a miss? Now let's start building up the entire tank crew, starting with Minor Megatron thrown into the mix. And again, given that each of these look great on their own next to Megatronus, is a display that just looks so damn good. I'm a sucker for toys that scale and match well together, and these three do that perfectly. Back to Minor Megatron, this time kneeling before his master Megatronus in this alternate timeline. I don't know how they did it, but so much expression in Megatron's face sculpt, which almost makes you think that they designed it for this purpose specifically. Taking it one step further, I wanted to take some lesser known characters that I think could look good together with Megatronus, from a design and character perspective. In this case, adding in Ferrak. After all, Megatronus would have his own elite followers, and I feel Ferrak would work well as his guard and devotee. If there ever was a more perfect combination, Tarn and Megatronus. One is the inspiration for the Decepticons and symbol, the other the manifestation of the Decepticon cause, down to the Decepticon symbol being used as his mask. And both are tanks. I'm fairly certain Tarn would be Megatronus' most ardent follower. In tank mode, they also look incredible together, both Overcharge and Tarn, giving way to Megatronus' leadership of the Decepticons rather than Megatron's. What a unit, a perfect unholy union. Now if we step back into an alternate reality, we could still have Minor Megatron included in this new version of the Decepticons, with Megatron being the chosen one to lead the Decepticons under Megatronus, but not yet in his final form. Is there hope for this alternate version of Megatron? This was also an inspired one. I like the idea of Megatronus stepping in to finish off Optimus Prime where Megatron couldn't, or wouldn't. I'm using the head of Optimus here from the recently released comic Shockwave figure. So much you can do here with this idea, my favorite being the idea of Megatronus being disappointed in Megatron for not being able to have done the job himself, and wondering if Megatron really has it in him to be the cruel and vicious leader Megatronus wants him to be. Note here how Megatron is looking away in shame, or is it sadness and disgust? This one was taken from a comic book storyline, one of the few using Megatronus in this form, so figured I'd throw it in as a bonus. Now this is another alternate reality display idea and storyline I could see working, taking place sometime after the events of the 1986 movie, with Megatron now taking on the mantle of the unhinged Galvatron, which would work perfectly conceptually with Megatronus being back in the picture. Another figure I don't really have a place for, but thought it was cool. I think I could see these two being pretty good ideas for enforcers for Megatronus. I might not display them together, but it is a possibility, especially if we go the route of creating some kind of team for Megatronus. Straxus is another one of those minor figures who I think could also work well as part of the Megatronus entourage. I feel like these are the types of characters that would be drawn to Megatronus' power and leadership. And finally, a shot of all our Decepticon tanks together, minus Blitzwing. I totally think this is a fun shot and display idea and visually looks great together. Bludgeon being a bit of an outlier but still being a cool addition to this column of Cybertronian tanks. What ideas do you guys have for your Megatronus? I'd love to hear about them in the comments section, or even which of these you liked best. Let's end with a box art as we typically do, though finally a new design and line to start fresh with. And I dig it. A nice clean box with really fantastic art of Megatronus in both his bot and tank modes. And guess what's back? A plastic window. So not only does this make the overall box design look that much better, but people can't steal accessories or even heads from the open-formed version. About time. Love this image of Megatronus on fire, and I really like whoever drew these pictures. Visually stunning. The type of comic book style I prefer. The back is really clean, which is refreshing, but still great looking. Doesn't look bare with the added design features and prime symbols they added in. I like the use of Cybertronian. I had to work for my meal to figure out what the laser was called. And finally, the other side panel with 3 of the golden prime statues and their relevant symbols, including Megatronus in the middle. Also note at the top, till all are one. So that's it for this week's episode 49 of Heroic Nonsense with a spotlight on the fallen Prime, Megatronus. A great way to kick off this new line, which has really got me excited for more, much more. What about you? Excited about this new line and the future of Transformers? Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Transformers toy reviews, comparisons, and news on the latest releases, and let us know in the comments if this Megatronus Prime is a worthy addition to your collection. See you all next time, and remember, it's all such heroic nonsense in the end.
Transform!